They went through each and every victim, and they had him showed the picture of the kid, had him say the name, and he would say, "She was in my classroom, and she did not survive. He was in my classroom, and he did not survive." And if the kid was in the other class, he would say, "He was in the other class, and he did not survive." And yeah, I mean, for me, that was the most emotional moment of this, because that's when I really connected with the faces of these kids. That's when it got real, because I'm looking at those kids and I'm seeing my own kid, and I'm thinking, that's really where the rubber meets the road. But obviously, just some really, we heard that, we didn't see it, but we heard that surveillance video where you can hear just shot after shot after shot, and the screams, and what you're telling me is the 911 call that teacher's making.
It's the staffer who was outside, because we heard that 911 call earlier in the week, or last week. It's the staffer, and she's the one that was going out to get some food from one of her coworkers, and then she kicks the door shut when she sees him, and then she calls 911, and you hear her, and she's saying, "Hurry, hurry, get in here, oh my God, the kids." And then you can hear like just the gunfire after gunfire after gunfire, those gunshots, and it is extremely emotional when you're sitting in the courtroom. I mean, we hear it here, but when you're sitting in that courtroom and the families are there, and you see the reaction, and you can just feel the emotion inside that courtroom. And I heard the teacher say that he had those kids' pictures on his fence, like every one of them, and he's kept them there, and he knew every single name, and that is just so heart-wrenching.
Well, Meredith, we thought they might do this, and I based that on what happened Friday, that we would hear a lot of kind of dry testimony today, and then they would end the day with
a bang.
And that's exactly what they did. What do you think about what we saw, the way the day ended?
I mean, they definitely ended it on a note where those screams are going to be ringing in those jurors' ears. I said they're not going to sleep tonight. That is something they're going to carry with them as they drive home, and as they see their family and their own children, if they have children, and they're going to have a hard time, I'm sure, putting that out of their mind. And that's exactly what it was meant to do.
Well, I can right now. I can hear the gunshots in my mind, and I can see the faces of those kids. I don't know what this jury's going to do, but
and the testimony of him saying that they had to drag him out, and that he was praying, and he told the children to close their eyes. I can only imagine how terrified you are, and how terrified they were. And like you, Tanya, when I hear those gunshots, I know that every gunshot there's probably a child that's getting killed when you're hearing that live, and it is so disturbing. Honestly, like I said, we've covered a lot of trials, but what we're hearing in this trial is definitely changing people's lives. The people that are in that courtroom, those jurors, and they told them that in opening statements and during selection, you're not going to leave this trial the same. And they do have grief counselors in there for the families and anybody that needs them. And you hear the judge keep saying, and the prosecutors, "You're about to see a disturbing video," and he tells the people in the courtroom, "You can step out."
Well, and the prosecutors asked him, "Did any of your children survive in room 11?" No, sir. All 11 children in that room died.
And it's May, and he's had the entire school year with them, and he's known their parents and taken care of them, and school's about to be out, and I can't imagine how terrible that was.
3 of them that left?
Yeah, there were 14 kids, 3 had left, so the 3 kids out of room 111 that survived were the 3 kids that had left.
Wow.
And that's something. And then the other thing that I thought was interesting was his description of how the student in the other classroom is saying, "Officers, we're in here, we're in here." And then the shooter goes in there, and if I understood that correctly, goes in the other room and begins, to shoot, kill kids in there, because that connecting door is unlocked.
And you hear also the defense in their cross-examination. They're setting up what their defense is going to be, and as they said in opening statements, that there were a lot of people that did things that contributed to what happened here, and it wasn't all Adrian Gonzales or the officers, that this could have been prevented had those doors been locked. And they asked this teacher, and I can imagine the guilt he feels that that door was unlocked and that they use a magnet that was actually handed out by school administrators.
Yeah.
And they're going to, some of those administrators are expected to be called to the stand to testify that they did that to like keep the doors from locking, which is against every protocol, safety protocol that they teach teachers and staff at schools.
And had they done that, this may not have happened. Those kids may still be alive, and that has nothing to do with Adrian Gonzales.
And so do you think that, to me, would that be reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's a contributing factor to what happened, and they can't lay all the blame on Adrian Gonzales.
Well, because they said, you know, the school, this is during the cross-examination, the school had rules on locks, yes. Doors are supposed to be locked all the time, yes. But there was a culture at this school of, because of the way that, you know, they had keys to lock the system and lock the doors, and they didn't have key fobs. There's a culture of using these magnets. Although apparently on room 111 they had these. Says he had complained about it not latching properly.
yeah,
But he believed the door was locked.
yeah,
But obviously it was not locked.
yeah.
And so that's
Well, and that's what is also so frustrating when you hear the surveillance video, because you've got for at least an hour officers running around trying to find a key to, and all they had to do was like, you know, it
Check
was
the
unlocked.
handle,
Yeah,
yeah.
check the handle. It was unlocked.
well, and of course Adrian Gonzales is, you know, not in there at that time, and so I don't know. But like I said, for me, it's the gun. It's all those gunshots, and then seeing the pictures of those kids. I just, yeah, that was hard.
That is hard.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on where we might head tomorrow?
Yeah, what did we hear today? We heard about bullet casings, and the officers that arrived. I'd like to hear from the other officers that came after Adrian Gonzales and what they saw, and perhaps some body cam footage of that. That would make sense.
And I think you're
Dispatch
also,
recordings too.
yeah, dispatch. But I think you're also going to hear about Adrian Gonzales's training. I suspect that they're going or have subpoenaed his trainers, and they're going to say, well, how was he trained? He was trained like every other officer across the country. After Columbine, you go in, stop the threat, even if it means going around injured people. So they're going to bring up a lot of his training records.
Right. What he should have done.
What
could he have done? What could he have done? Of course, the defense is going to argue he didn't have line of sight. He's one officer, and what does it serve anybody if he goes in and he just gets immediately killed? That's clearly going to be their contention. But no matter how this turns out, this is very emotional for the families and for anybody connected to this. And it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. Well, Meredith, thank you so much
You're
for joining
welcome.
us today. This again, Meredith Bagui.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful to have spent the entire day with us, and of course, Rebecca Lopez, our senior crime and justice reporter. And again, I'm Tanya Iser, a senior investigative reporter. I want to thank you for watching our gavel-to-gavel coverage of the Uvalde school shooting for Officer Adrian Gonzales. Now, if you missed any of the testimony or analysis throughout the proceedings, you can go back and you can get caught up on our YouTube page or right here on our Plus app. We'll be back again tomorrow morning, and our coverage starts at 8:30 a.m.